Color Out of Space. So, this movie, I forget the name of the director. Sorry about that. I had it on the tip of my tongue. But I forget the name. But he's most known for The Island of Dr. Moreau. So for those of you who don't know, back in the 90s, there was The Island of Dr. Moreau movie with Val Kilmer. And there was a huge disaster, one of the most infamous production disasters out there. The director of this movie is the director that got fired from that movie. But other than that, I'm not too familiar with this director's filmography. Now, I am familiar with some of the movies that have been adapted from H.P. Lovecraft material. For instance, there's the movie Reanimator, which I love. I love the movie Reanimator. And there's also From Beyond, which is a notable H.P. Lovecraft movie. If I had to draw a comparison to one of those, this movie borrows a lot of elements from the movie From Beyond. And it definitely has that cosmic horror, colorful feel to it, just like those two movies had. This movie also stars Nicolas Cage, Hollywood's favorite crazy person. He decided to take a step out of the Redbox and do a real movie for once. He's got to pay off a lot of mansions, but this one is definitely one that's not your Redbox movie or your straight to Netflix schlock movie. So what is this movie about? It's about a family living on a farm. Trouble with the marriage of the parents. They haven't had sex in a while. Their sex life is a little rocky. And all of a sudden, a meteorite crashes onto their land in the middle of their sexy time. And a bunch of crazy stuff ensue, like you would expect from a H.P. Lovecraft story. This movie is awesome. This movie, I read a few reviews, and a lot of people were mixed on it. This was a great throwback to 80s horror, body horror. There's that colorful feel that 80s horror movies had, just like Reanimator or Dario Argento's movies, stuff like Suspiria and Opera and stuff like that. It's a very colorful horror movie, which I haven't seen in a while. And not just that, but just thematically. When this movie started off, I feel like there was a kind of like a poltergeist feel to it, the way the family dynamics were going on. And when the horror elements first start out, it's like each individual family member has their own demons that they're trying to fight. And I actually wrote down in my notes, this would be a great horror movie for the family, until the movie takes like a sharp left halfway through the movie, and shit becomes batshit wild. So if I had to compare this movie to another movie, it would be Annihilation, which I feel like I'm always name-dropping that movie, especially lately. But this movie has a similar feel to Annihilation with Natalie Portman. So that was all very interesting. The colors were beautiful. It was a beautiful, colorful horror movie. Just like how Midsommar used like daytime to contrast against the horror shit that was going on. This movie does the same thing, but with colors, and you can tell by just looking at the poster of this film, this is a colorful film, and the name as well, Color Out of Space. Yeah, so I wrote down in my notes that this would be like a good segue horror movie for kids, and don't watch this with your kids. Nicolas Cage. Now, like I said before, Nicolas Cage has been hanging out in the Redbox, but every so often he crawl out and make a good movie and then crawl back in. So I don't think this movie per se is a turning point in Nicolas Cage's career. The dude is just gonna play in every movie someone asks him to be in, which is all right, I guess. Yeah, go for it. But he was great in this movie. He was great in Mandy as well recently. There's that movie Joe. He was good in that. So every so often he'll drop a good movie. And this is definitely one of those. He starts off pretty subdued and I'm like, okay, this is not quite the Nicolas Cage I know. And then Again, halfway through the movie, you get crazy Nicolas Cage. Hey, what you guys doing over there? That's my Nicolas Cage impression. It was awful. Yeah, this movie was batshit crazy. The body horror in this, oh my god. I was watching it with a friend, and there's a scene in this. I'll spoil it at the end of this review, so I'm not going to spoil it now. Keep tuning in. But there's a scene in this movie that when it happened, I legit took my hand and slapped myself in the mouth with my own hand. I was like, holy shit! So yeah, that scene had me in shock. And the movie does use practical effects a lot, which is the reason why it made me feel like a throwback 80s body horror feel to this. The puppet work in this was amazing. The makeup was amazing. Whenever the movie didn't use makeup and practical effects, though, when they would rely on CG, I didn't think it was as effective. Fortunately, that's more in the first half of the film, and the second half of the film is more of your animatronics. But yeah, the puppetry in this movie was fantastic, and the visual effects as well. I'm trying to figure out why critics are mixed on this movie, because in my eyes, this is a great, great horror movie. And I haven't seen anything like this in a while. There was a movie that came out a few years ago called The Void, and that was trying to be a throwback to 80s body horror as well. But I think that one didn't quite stick the landing, whereas this one does. So I'm trying to think why critics are on the fence about it. And I think it might be because of that sharp contrast between the first half and the second half of the movie. First half of the movie, it feels like Poltergeist, just like a family horror film. And the second half, it gets into body horror and really weird abstract horror. So it could be that, which threw people off. I didn't mind the shift in tone halfway through the movie. There are some tone-deaf things, though. Like, there's a cameo by Tommy Chong, which I love Tommy Chong. Like, listen, I'm a Canadian. He's a good Canadian guy, a good Canadian, you know? But I think he might have been ill-fitting in this, maybe. He's not in the movie that much, but his voice is so iconic that as soon as I hear Tommy Chong's voice, I'm like, okay, that's Tommy Chong. Great visual effects. Some tone-deaf moments, but not too many. Overall, great premise, too. The ending of this movie I thought was a little stupid. I'm going to do spoilers from now on. Spoilers! Turn it off if you don't want to hear spoilers about this movie. So, the ending of this movie, the sole survivor of this is the kid that the daughter is hitting on, which he wasn't given much development, so to make him the sole survivor of this incident is a little weird. And he has some monologue at the end. I'm like, okay, I would have rathered if he just wasn't in the movie, or at least don't end the movie with him as if he's the most important character. So that to me was a problem. What was the thing? Oh yeah, okay, so the body horror scene that really shocked me. So the meteor releases light, and the light mutates people. And as the light is flashing, the mom goes to hug her son to protect him, and the light fuses their bodies together, and the son is stitched to the mom's back, and it's so fucking nasty, and they just show you enough of it that you can piece together what is happening, and the noises they're making too, it's these agonizing screams, and you're like, holy shit. That's when the movie really takes a sharp turn, and you're like, oh, it had me on the edge of my seat. I couldn't believe what happened there. That was a beautiful, beautiful horror scene. Just terrifying to me. Color Out of Space is definitely a unique horror movie. Very colorful, great throwback to 80s horror movies. I have a tough time trying to see how come some people didn't like it. Because it's not just audiences. I can understand why an audience member wouldn't like it, but it's critics alike as well who don't like it. So I guess I'm in the minority. I thought this movie was a lot of fun. But and I'd like to see Nicolas Cage do this kind of movie more often. I didn't watch USS Indianapolis bullshit on Netflix. I want to see him make some... There's plenty of independent filmmakers that I'm sure want to work with Nicolas Cage, because he does bring an element to the table that only Nicolas Cage can bring. I'm sure there's plenty of independent filmmakers that want to work with Nicolas Cage. Unfortunately, that probably doesn't pay off his Malibu home. But please, Nicolas Cage, more crazy indie movies, preferably horror. Mandy was awesome, and this is awesome as well.
Everything's gonna be A-okay.